Welcome back to the channel. Today we're tackling a topic that might make some of you uncomfortable, but it's a truth I see over and over in my work as a therapist. Women actually prefer it when you don't chase after them. And before you roll your eyes or think I'm exaggerating, hear me out. This isn't about being cold or manipulative. It's about understanding human attraction and the subtle psychology that guides relationships. I've sat with countless men who are frustrated, confused, and even hurt because they feel like they have to constantly prove themselves to the women they care about. They send messages, call, plan dates, and do everything in their power to show interest. But instead of bringing them closer, it often pushes women away. Why? Because relentless chasing can signal neediness, desperation, or a lack of self-respect, even if your intentions are genuine. On the flip side, I've seen men who quietly live their lives, focus on themselves, and allow relationships to develop naturally. The interesting and often shocking part is that these men are almost always the ones women are drawn to. It's not about arrogance or ignoring someone. It's about holding your own value, creating a sense of mystery, and giving a woman the space to feel curious, appreciated, and even a little challenged. Throughout this video, I'll share stories from my experience as a therapist, anonymized, of course, that show exactly how this dynamic plays out in real relationships. You'll hear examples of men who learned the hard way that chasing rarely works, and how shifting their approach completely transformed their interactions. So, if you're ready to challenge what you thought you knew about dating and attraction, stay with me. By the end, you'll see why stepping back, being confident in yourself, and resisting the urge to chase isn't just smart, it's powerful. Why chasing kills attraction. 1. Why chasing kills attraction. When we talk about relationships, one of the biggest misconceptions I see in my work with men is the idea that the more you chase, the more she will care. I've seen it countless times. A man pours his energy into texts, calls, planning everything, and even bending his own schedule just to be available. He does all of this believing it shows how much he values her. But what usually happens instead is the opposite. Women don't feel more attached. They feel overwhelmed, pressured, and in some cases even suffocated. Chasing, as I explain to the men I work with, isn't just a harmless habit. It actually signals insecurity and a lack of self-sufficiency. Whether you mean it that way or not, think of it like this. When someone is constantly available, always responding immediately, always putting themselves last to prioritize another person, it starts to take away the sense of mystery, challenge, and independence that naturally attracts people. In my experience, attraction isn't built through insistence, it's built through balance. Women are naturally drawn to men who have their own lives, goals, and boundaries. When you chase, even with the purest intentions, it erodes that balance. You may be thinking, but I care about her. I just want her to see that. And that's valid, but attraction isn't about proving how much you care. It's about demonstrating that you already have value and that she's choosing to be a part of your life, not the other way around. I remember sitting with a man who was exhausted from constantly trying to earn a woman's attention. He didn't see that in his mind. Every text and call was innocent, but from her perspective, it felt like pressure. She started to withdraw, and he couldn't understand why. When we worked through it, the shift was simple but profound. He stopped chasing. He focused on his life, his goals, his friends, and activities that made him feel fulfilled. He didn't ignore her, but he also didn't bend over backwards. Within weeks, the dynamic changed. She started reaching out, initiating conversations, and showing genuine interest because now he had presence, independence, and confidence. Qualities that no amount of chasing could create. The truth is, chasing doesn't inspire love or respect. It often breeds frustration and disconnection. The men who thrive in dating aren't the ones who run after someone endlessly. They are the ones who hold their value, respect themselves, and let women feel drawn to them naturally. Understanding this doesn't make relationships manipulative. It makes them healthier, more balanced, and ultimately more magnetic. In the next sections, we'll explore exactly how to create that magnetic pull without ever having to chase. 2. The power of holding your value, holding your value. One of the most powerful lessons I teach men in my Practice is this. Your value isn't measured by how much attention you give a woman. It's measured by how well you hold your ground. I see it all the time. Men who bend over backward to please, to respond immediately, to cancel plans for someone else thinking it will make them more desirable. The truth is, constantly giving away your time and energy doesn't make you attractive. It diminishes your value in her eyes, even if she doesn't consciously realize it. Holding your value isn't about playing games or being cold. It's about understanding who you are, what you want, and the standards you set for yourself. I once worked with a man who was frustrated because the woman he liked never seemed invested in him the way he was in her. He admitted that he'd rearranged his schedule, picked up last-minute favors, and kept himself available whenever she called. It was exhausting for him, but more importantly, it wasn't creating connection, it was creating a pattern, where she expected his availability and he became predictable. The moment we shifted his approach, where he honored his own time, pursued his own goals, and didn't always respond immediately, everything changed. She started initiating contact, showing interest, and even expressing curiosity about his life. That's the power of holding your value. When you respect yourself, others start to respect you too. From a psychological perspective, humans are naturally drawn to confidence and independence. Women, like anyone else, are instinctively attracted to people who have their own purpose, their own life, and their own standards. When you chase, you inadvertently signal that your happiness depends on her attention, and that dependency is never attractive. But when you hold your value, you send a very different message. I'm whole on my own. I have things I care about, and I know what I deserve. That sense of self-assurance is magnetic. It creates curiosity and desire because it's rare to encounter someone who doesn't need validation to feel worthy. Being a man who holds his value also changes the energy of interactions. Conversations become lighter, more engaging, and more playful. You stop worrying about approval, and you start creating moments where connection is natural, not forced. In my experience, men who embrace this principle not only attract women more easily, but also experience deeper, healthier relationships because they aren't compromising themselves to earn someone's affection. The lesson here is clear. Stop chasing. Start living your life fully. Respect your own time, energy, and standards. When you do, you become someone worth chasing, not someone doing all the running. That shift, small as it may seem, is often the turning point in a man's dating life. 3. Why space creates? Why space creates curiosity. Curiosity. One of the biggest mistakes I see men make is thinking that constant presence equals connection. They feel like the more they're around, the more a woman will like them. But in reality, the opposite often happens. Humans are naturally curious, and attraction thrives on a subtle push and pull. In my experience as a therapist, I've watched countless men exhaust themselves by overinvesting their time, energy, and attention only to feel invisible in return. The truth is, when you give too much too soon, you remove the mystery, and curiosity is a core driver of attraction. I remember a man I worked with who was smitten with a woman he had been seeing for a few weeks. He thought the best way to win her over was to be available 24/7, answering texts immediately, agreeing to last-minute plans, and always putting her schedule above his. Within days, she started pulling back. She wasn't rejecting him out of disinterest. She simply didn't feel the same spark anymore. He was there too much, and that constant presence made the relationship predictable. When we worked on creating healthy space, the results were dramatic. He stopped over-communicating, focused on his hobbies, and allowed her room to wonder what he was up to. Within a short time, her engagement increased. She started reaching out more, and the dynamic became exciting again. Space creates curiosity because it allows someone to ask themselves, what's he doing? What's his life like? It introduces a sense of intrigue that chasing completely erases. In psychology, this is known as the scarcity principle. When something isn't constantly available, it becomes more desirable. By giving her room, you're not playing games. You're simply demonstrating that your time and attention are valuable. You're showing that you're independent, confident, and not dependent on her validation to feel whole. That energy, I can tell you from experience, is magnetic. Creating space also gives you clarity. When you stop chasing, you see more clearly who is genuinely interested versus who is only comfortable with someone being endlessly available. Many men discover that stepping back actually increases respect and appreciation from women who might have been taking them for granted. In turn, this allows for a healthier dynamic where both people are actively choosing each other, rather than one person constantly running after the other. The key takeaway is simple. Giving space is not about ignoring someone or being manipulative. It's about creating a natural rhythm where attraction can breathe and grow. The men I see succeed most in dating understand that curiosity fuels desire and constant chasing kills it. Respecting both your life and her space is one of the most effective ways to make a woman want to invest in you without you ever feeling like you're running after her. Neediness versus confidence. 4. Neediness versus confidence. I want to tell you about a couple I worked with in my practice, keeping all the details confidential, but highlighting a dynamic many men experience. He was in a relationship with a woman he deeply cared about, but from the very beginning, he felt like he had to constantly prove himself. Every message, every plan, every little gesture was aimed at showing her how much he cared. On the surface, it seemed romantic, but over time she started pulling away and he couldn't understand why. In therapy, we broke down what was really happening. What he thought was love and devotion was actually a form of neediness. His confidence had been unintentionally replaced with constant reassurance seeking. She could feel it even if she couldn't articulate it. In relationships, neediness is like an invisible weight. It creates pressure and often makes the other person feel responsible for your happiness. This is something I see repeatedly. Men believe they are showing love, but they are unconsciously signaling that they lack self-sufficiency. Contrast that with confidence. Confidence doesn't mean being arrogant or distant. It means knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and living your life fully regardless of the relationship. When this man began to shift his approach, things changed dramatically. He stopped over-texting, stopped rearranging his life for her at the drop of a hat, and started focusing on his personal growth and interest. He was still attentive, still caring, but he no longer felt desperate to be liked or needed. What happened next was fascinating. She began initiating more, showing genuine curiosity about him and engaging in ways she hadn't before. The dynamic shifted from her feeling pressured to wanting to connect because he had created space for attraction to grow. This is a pattern I see often. Confidence draws people in while neediness pushes them away. In relationships, maintaining your confidence is not about playing games. It's about respecting yourself and the relationship enough to avoid overextending emotionally in ways that reduce your value. This couple's story is powerful because it demonstrates that even when a relationship exists, the same principles of attraction apply. You can't force someone to feel connected. You can only create the environment where genuine interest and desire flourish. Holding your confidence, prioritizing your life, and letting your partner see your independence transforms the dynamic from chasing to mutual investment. The lesson here is clear for any man in a relationship. Stop trying to fill every gap with attention or validation. Neediness never builds attraction. Confidence, self-respect, and the ability to live your life fully. These are what makes someone want to stay, engage, and genuinely invest in you. 5. When pulling back sparks. When pulling back sparks, interest. I want to share another example from my experience as a therapist, one that highlights the subtle but powerful effect of pulling back in a relationship. There was a man in a long-term relationship who constantly worried about losing his partner's attention. He would check in multiple times a day, plan every weekend around her schedule, and go out of his way to anticipate her every need. On the surface, it seemed like dedication, but over time, the spark in their relationship faded. She wasn't uninterested. She just no longer felt the same pull because he was always there, always predictable, and always available. We worked together to help him understand a crucial truth. Attraction thrives on a balance between closeness and space. When he began to pull back, not out of anger or manipulation, but out of self-respect and awareness, something surprising happened. He stopped initiating minor check-ins constantly, started spending time on his own hobbies, and allowed her the space to initiate conversations and plans. Within a few weeks, she started reaching out more often, showing curiosity about his day, and even planning things for them without his prompting. The dynamic shifted from him chasing her attention to her actively engaging with him. Pulling back works because it changes the energy of the relationship. When someone is always chasing or overinvesting, it can create an imbalance that subconsciously reduces attraction. But when you take a step back, you send a clear message. Your life is full, your time is valuable, and you are confident in yourself. This isn't about being distant or cold. It's about demonstrating independence. In my experience, women respond to this shift because it allows them to appreciate your presence without feeling pressured. Curiosity returns, desire is rekindled, and the relationship feels alive again. I've seen this pattern play out over and over. The moment a man stops overextending himself and begins to hold his boundaries, the relationship transforms. She starts noticing his qualities more deeply, appreciates his attention more genuinely, and feels motivated to invest equally. Pulling back doesn't mean ignoring someone. It means creating an environment where mutual effort and genuine interest thrive naturally. The lesson from this man's experience is clear. You don't have to chase to maintain love or attention. In fact, chasing often diminishes it. By giving space, focusing on yourself, and respecting your own life, you create a magnetic effect where the relationship becomes more balanced and more engaging. What initially feels counterintuitive, stepping back instead of leaning in, often leads to the most profound changes in attraction and connection. 6. The mistakes men make. The mistakes men make without realizing. One of the most common patterns I see in my work as a therapist is that men unintentionally sabotage attraction without even realizing it. They're often well-meaning, genuinely invested, and care deeply about the women in their lives, but their actions send signals that reduce desire instead of building it. What's fascinating is that these mistakes are almost always subtle, disguised as being thoughtful or showing love, but the impact is the same. Chasing, over-communicating, and over-investing creates imbalance, and imbalance kills attraction. Take the man I worked with recently. He was in the early stages of dating someone he really liked, and he wanted to show her how much he valued her. He thought that texting constantly, agreeing to every plan, and rearranging his schedule would demonstrate commitment. In reality, it communicated neediness and insecurity, even though that wasn't his intention. She started to pull away not because she didn't care, but because the energy of chasing made the connection feel forced. Another mistake I see repeatedly is men over-explaining themselves. They justify why they can't respond immediately, why they did something, or why they feel a certain way. While honesty is good, too much explanation can signal a lack of confidence and create pressure in the interaction. In relationships, subtlety matters. Attraction grows when there's a natural rhythm when both people are allowed to show interest, curiosity, and initiative rather than one person doing all the work. Many men also fall into the trap of assuming that constant availability equals affection. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about attraction. Being always available reduces mystery, diminishes independence, and creates a dynamic where a woman can subconsciously take your presence for granted. Attraction isn't about how much you give. It's about the energy you project, the life you lead, and the respect you show for yourself. Finally, I see men confusing helpfulness, or being a good partner, with chasing. They do things to fix problems, smooth over tensions, or always make themselves accessible. While intentions are noble, overcompensating often communicates, "I need you to like me," or "I can't be whole without you." Confidence, independence, and emotional balance, not constant action, are what make a man magnetic. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Small, unconscious mistakes can completely alter the dynamic in your relationships. Chasing, over-explaining, over-availability, and overcompensation may feel natural, but they push attraction away rather than pull it in. The men who thrive in dating and relationships are those who recognize these traps, step back, hold their value, and create space for curiosity and desire to grow naturally. How to let her come to you. Naturally 7. How to let her come to you naturally. One of the most powerful lessons I've seen in my work with men is that the real magic in attraction happens when you stop trying to force it. Too often, men believe that if they plan every interaction, message every hour, or constantly seek validation, they'll make a woman care more. The truth, based on years of experience, is exactly the opposite. When you allow a woman to come to you naturally, the connection becomes stronger, more authentic, and far more magnetic. I remember a man I worked with who was desperate for attention in his relationship. He tried to coordinate every detail of their time together, sent multiple texts a day, and even anticipated her needs before she voiced them. She responded politely but distantly, and he felt frustrated and rejected. Over time, he realized that his constant effort wasn't creating attraction, it was creating pressure. When we worked together to change his approach, he stopped chasing and started living his life fully. He pursued hobbies, spent time with friends, focused on personal growth, and only engaged with her in ways that felt natural and meaningful. Gradually, she began initiating conversations, planning dates, and showing genuine interest without him having to chase or convince her. Letting her come to you naturally isn't about ignoring her or being cold. It's about maintaining your independence and presence. It's about creating a life that's full, interesting, and valuable on its own. When you have your own passions, goals, and routines, you project a sense of confidence and self-worth that is inherently attractive. Women are drawn to men who are whole on their own because it creates space for curiosity, admiration, and genuine interest. Another critical aspect is restraint. This doesn't mean avoiding communication entirely, but it does mean resisting the urge to over-explain, over-apologize, or over-plan. Give her room to wonder, to notice, and to take initiative. In my experience, men who practice this balance see a dramatic shift in dynamics. The woman starts investing emotionally, showing appreciation, and engaging in ways that feel mutual rather than forced. Finally, patience is key. Conclusion. Attraction is not a race, it's a rhythm. By stepping back, holding your value, and living intentionally, you create an environment where desire and curiosity can flourish naturally. She begins to see you as someone independent, confident, and intriguing, a man whose attention is earned, not given away freely. The lesson is clear. Stop chasing. Focus on yourself. Respect your time, and allow the relationship to develop in a natural, balanced way. When you do this, she will come to you, not because of manipulation, but because true attraction and respect have been restored. That is the ultimate power of letting her approach you on her own terms.